participated. We appreciate the patience from OPD, Mr. and Balanja and this. Sunny O'Donnell. So what gave rise to this meeting today? Again, this is an oversight / informational hearing on OGMSC, and the agency had provided a fund status on a lot of agencies in the CNMI based on their responsibility, and one of them is OPD. And although I received a letter from Ms. Falahaja saying that the entity does not necessarily go through them, the fact that they did report that out, compels us to have at least a meeting with your division, if that's the appropriate way, or the office. So you're not an oversight, you're just sharing your experience as far as the way the probably 1949, the way it is, its functions, and how is it in relation to all the efforts that you guys have been producing since the OPD was formulated or became law. And for the record, with me the panel is, to my right is Senator Cruz, and to my left is Senator Dean Sablan. And not with us today is Senator Victor Hope. He's out on personal schedule. So with that, I turn the mic to you, Mr. Kodet Gomuro.
Good afternoon, Senate President and Senators. So yes, thank you for your invitation. And as you saw, the materials I shared, additional supplemental materials, earlier this morning, in fact, included basically a breakdown of the current federal grants that were awarded to OPD, and additionally what was submitted by the CIP office. As you know, Public Law 20-20 moved the office from OMB to OPD. So we coordinate on that front. So relative to your request, go ahead. I guess I'll just go briefly through the 4 main grants, and then you can ask me any questions. Yeah. So generally, and outside of the CIP program that's OIA funded, we have 1 grant that we're managing that was awarded by the Environmental Protection Agency under the Disaster Recovery Act of 2019. We're managing it. The grant was awarded to the CNMI, and like all 4 grants that we're managing, these are coordination efforts and a lot of collaboration between and amongst various agencies. So for the EPA grant, the Solid Waste Management Grant, because we're on the planning side, EPA had awarded the initial grant to OPD, and as you saw in the breakdown to date, the CNMI has received through OPD a little over $5.7 million of the total $56 million award. And there's no deadline on the grant. We just run through it until all funds are exhausted, but they are very specific to Super Typhoon due to disaster debris. So as you see here, under the first 2 awards that we received, these are the areas that we're looking to execute on under the fund award. including completing disaster debris cleanup from the super typhoon, building capacity through new hires and training, increasing the capacity of BCQ on the regulatory side, and they receive funds separately, but also from this funding. And then developing a comprehensive integrated solid waste management plan for all 3 main islands, as well as a zero waste management plan and feasibility study for a pilot project, zero waste pilot project on Tinian. And then finally conducting emergency repairs to the landfill, the Marby landfill here. As you may have seen in the news recently, CNMI was also awarded a large grant through the U.S. Department of Commerce's Economic Development Administration, EDA, for the Oliai Sports and Cultural Tourism Enhancement Project. There are 2 components. One that's on the east side of Beach Road in Oliai, addressing the sports complex, and then the other on the west side by the beach for cultural tourism enhancement purposes. So on the sports complex side, excuse me, there's various renovation and rehabilitation components to the award, specifically for the gym, and as noted there, to repair damage, enhance storm resiliency, and improve the building, to include 190 mile per hour wind resistant roofing, and then a proposed 2nd floor addition for office space and a conference room. There's also going to be a separate storage facility that's going to be sort of housed between the gym and the track, and then an Olympic-sized swimming pool with the associated facilities and bleachers and a locker room for the swimmers. There's also a plan to construct 2 tennis courts to also include fencing and bleachers. And then there's going to be rehab and renovation work at the baseball stadium, including the main ball field and then the one smaller softball field in the back, to include grandstand lighting, announcer box, and such for the sports complex site. And then for the cultural component on the west side of Beach Road in Oliai, there's going to be a main pavilion. I apologize, I did have some conceptual designs. Those I'll happily share, but they're not in this presentation. But there's going to be a main pavilion that's constructed, as well as kiosks, so concrete kiosks that would basically house vendors. And it's kind of a Chamorro Village style setup. There's going to be an amphitheater with the associated facilities, parking area, improvements to the Gumasakben, more restroom facilities, landscaping, and then unique to this project, and I think maybe the first in the region, is the ADA compliant pedestrian overpass to connect both sides and allow for movement between the sides. So this was actually the component that sold the proposal. I think senators who were at the press conference last week, but as I mentioned there, the idea with EDA is to promote economic development through the building of entrepreneurs, and so this was sort of the anchor to the proposal. So we were just awarded this grant, and coincidentally, this morning we met with officials from TSL Foundation, NEMSA, BCCA, and as well as Pat Guerrero from Public Assistance Program to discuss ways to proceed with. There are three federal grants that were awarded specifically for the gym complex, including public assistance funding, a little over $3 million, and then CDBG-DR funds. So we're going to coordinate on those at this point moving forward.
So that's side separate from the 21?
Yes. Well, so this is the 21.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so that you're talking about with CPAT?
That's separate.
Okay, great.
And then we also have the $11 million EDA award as well for Garapan revitalization, which is to make improvements to multiple streets in the Garapan core, to construct curbs and sidewalks, widen the streets, add lighting and landscaping. So mainly road work in the Garapan core. And that was awarded, I apologize, I should know this information, but it was awarded earlier this year. I want to say sometime in February. So that's Garapan revitalization project award. And then the last award that we had collaborated on, and again, like the previous three grants, and hopefully, as you will hopefully know by now, OPD really coordinates and partners with various agencies and stakeholders on our different projects, and this is no different. So our office, in collaboration with DLNR and BECQ, put together a proposal for wetland and coral habitat restoration in the Garapan area. And so we received a $1.6 million award from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation to basically address wetland areas and improving the wetlands. I think Senator Sablan, we know all about mangrove restoration efforts. And so this is a habitat restoration project. So that's of the last of the four that we're working on and were awarded this fiscal year. And then through the CIP office, we just have 2 slides there, basically showing the rundown of awards received and existing balances from FY 2010 till now. And then if you go to the next slide, it's an allocation by items. So that's basically the presentation. I have more slides, but they're not specific to your calling this morning. But if you'd like, I can run right through them quickly. But they're relative to our recent endorsement of the draft Comprehensive Sustainable Development Plan that OPD is mandated to produce. And so the Planning and Development Advisory Council last week, Monday, voted to endorse the plan. It's under Public Law 20-20. There's a process now for review and comment and approval, starting with the community and holding community meetings, and then review by the governor and lieutenant governor, with responses to the proposed edits to the plan, and then finally with the review by the legislature. So the slides that, go ahead, the slide that I appended to this presentation is to kind of cover what we've launched as far as our public meetings that started on Tinian yesterday. So the team is also there today presenting out on a summary of the plan, and starting with Tinian. And so we presented to the community there yesterday, and then wrapping up today to also include solid waste meetings with the task force. So these slides, if maybe just kind of click through the slides.
We didn't take you away from the meeting.
You did, but that's fine. That's what the team's all about. No, I'm happily here to share information. But basically, you can kind of click through the slides. Just a lot of background on the office, and then the 17 different sustainable development goals that frame the planning work that was done. Next slide. Next slide. And so this is kind of a summation of what's taken place to date. If you see there are over 20 planning elements that were identified in Public Law 20-20 that we needed to address. There are 4 themes, 17 sustainable development goals. We've held 18 public meetings to date, received over 200 public comments, and I've had 3 rounds of draft review after endorsement by the council. And then there are 4 different thematic areas. Theme 1, sustainable systems. So if you see those colored tiles, those basically address different sectors, dealing with energy, sustainable communities, consumption, production, terrestrial and marine conservation, climate change adaptation, and we have associated targets and objectives for each of these. Next slide. Next slide. Theme 2, networks of care to maintain efficient governance and social safety nets, and the relevant SDGs, addressing poverty, access to food, health, quality education, and economic growth. Next slide. Theme 3, inclusive and equitable communities. SDG 5 on gender equality, addressing inequalities, and then peace, justice, and strong institutions. Next slide. And then the last theme is 4 on partnerships, which ties right back to the work that we do and the grants that I just presented out on, which are all a result of the partnerships that we formed in order to advance the goals. Next slide. Then our mission. So this is kind of a truncated version of the presentation that was launched on Tinian. And I do want to thank Chairman Cruz and Tinian and Wigan local delegation for their letter of support, as well as noting your concern as far as the comprehensive economic development strategy and the priority list that was developed in the last sets. So now we're going through a new sets process, and it's absolutely noted. OPD wasn't a part of the prioritization. There's a sets commission, so we're going to go back to Governor Torres to work on reappointing and refreshing the sets commission as we move forward to create our new strategy, economic development strategy for the next 5 years. So yes, that's my presentation, and I'm happy, and we're happy to take any questions.
Great.
Sir, can we please power up the lights so we can see clear? And while he is whether or not turns the lights on, I want to thank you for this Very nice. Actually, you're the second one that actually came to the PowerPoint, which is really good. Helps us, learn more about the entity that you represent and your responsibilities. Well, thank you. That so at this time, thanks, Senator Denis.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Cora, for the presentation. And also to Ms. Balhaja and Ms. Adan, thank you for being here as well. First off, any of the 3 grants you put out 3 grants there, are any in coordination with the OGM?
So of the 4 that I presented on, OGM's involvement was mainly with the EDA proposals. So for the Garapan side, upon the award, they've been providing technical support to our Deputy Director, Chris Concepcion, who's leading that project. And then for the Oliai Sports Complex, Sports and Cultural Tourism Enhancement Project, such a long name, they were involved early on as we were starting to piece together the proposal. But that's the extent of their involvement.
Okay, and that just because the proceedings that started earlier in the week were of the seeking of information, right, / oversight of the Office of Grants Management. How is that working relationship, or is it a continued working relationship? We're trying to, and I'm asking this because we're trying to kind of look back at, as the President said, Public Law 19-49 and fix any kinks and try to see if we can make any adjustments in the structure of that public law so that the services that the Office of Grants Management are to assist with according to the law is in a clear direction, right? And for example, one of the clauses in Public Law 19-49 is that the Office of Grants Management assist in the initiation, coordination, and management of all CNMI grants, but we're seeing that there's just portions of the entities that are going through them. Some are not, and we've had other agencies yesterday and the day before come up saying, yeah, we do coordinate with them. Some say no. So that's part of the public law that we have to kind of revisit and make sure that there's some clear guidance on who is to be assisted by them and who is not, since they are the state clearinghouse. So that's the reason why we've been calling in the agencies to gain knowledge on how the grant process is in conjunction with or without the Office of Grants Management. I'm really comforted on what you presented today. As you know, I've come from an environmental background for the past 16 years before the 7 years here. And I'm a huge proponent of environmental preservation here in the legislature in regards to policy. So it's really, I'm really appreciative of the grants you have on, preserving our landfill. We're looking at policies and researching right now, and maybe the 2 of us or this body, the Senate can speak to you, since you deal a lot with the ECQ. We're looking into policies of universal trash collection and some research in that, and what kind of grants we can get to kind of go in that direction. And then of course the EDA award of 21 million. As you know, at 4:30 or at 4:15 we're going to march down to the Ada Gymnasium for the launch of the launch and planning of the mini games, right, which is going to happen next year, correct? 2022. So things are moving forward, and I'm really thankful for your office. As things are playing through, we have tourist bubbles, talks coming into play, the relaunching of flights from the Asian countries, and we're moving slowly, but I know the Office of Planning and Development does play a vital role, especially in the revitalization project. We don't know when we're gonna come to our normalcy, but I know that, we all know that we will one day get there, so that, it's good that we're prepared to welcome back our visitors. But that's it. I wanted to make sure that we kind of stay on task with the agenda, because we are holding an agenda today. And the gist of you being here was just to kind of measure the working relation with the Office of Grants Management, and to see or feel if there's anything that you recommend that could be, adjusted in that, in that process. So these are notes that the staff are taking right now, notes that we are taking up here to kind of re-look and rethink, how we can make that public law, which establishes the Office of Grants Management, to provide, not that they're not providing service, they're providing great service, but we want to make sure that there's some clear direction in the services that they provide. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you.
Thank you, Clerk. Would you like to add any more? Go ahead.
Oh, you did ask the question, so I'll briefly respond. Yes, we have a good working relationship, and where we need their assistance, they provide it. But I think early on, and I know Liz will recall this, we did try to coordinate more closely with them. Back in 2018 and 2019, we're just trying to establish a system, and then U2 hit, and I think that really changed the course for a lot of agencies, particularly a lot of agencies up here at the governor's office that are tied closely to response and recovery efforts. So I can even say that OPD also kind of veered off our original track as a result of U2, and I think the same happened with them. So I think there's certainly opportunity to collaborate more closely, and more opportunity to share information. So I think we try to keep that image up of ourselves as being very transparent and working very closely and working very hard really to share as much information as we're able to, and as much information as we have access to. And I think a lot of people can attest to that. So I think that's something that we're proud of, and we want to build on that, particularly with OGM. But it does require, yes, open communication, so that we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. And thank you, Senator Solana. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon. I appreciate the presentation, and I also encourage that you collaborate with OGM so that we can extend more services to the island through that office. And I don't know if the office also collaborating with DCCA, because I see your presentation about rehabilitation on sports and cultural complex. Any collaboration with DCCA in regards to sports rehabilitation of basketball and tennis court, and in other words, that possible? Can you also collaborate with DCCA on all three islands, so that we can see what we can do to improve our facility? Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely, Senator, and we're excited for this partnership with DCCA, specifically on the Oliai Sports Complex. Early on, former Secretary Hunter and I worked very closely on the proposal, and then now with the new Secretary, Guerrero, I was sharing earlier that we had a meeting this morning on the mini games and the status of and progress of now this award coupled with the Public Assistance Award, and what can get accomplished quickly and done well prior to the games. Thank you.
Mrs. Masi, Senator Cruz. Just quickly, Mr. Director, Administrator, no? You don't know official? Director.
Director.
I'm still trying to, my apologies on this side. Just moving back to, referring back to 1949, during the initial date of meeting with Administrator Cabrera, we kind of flushed out the provisions now on his responsibility as the direct point of contact for all grants, with the exception of some autonomous agencies and some revenue generating agencies here. And this is created by by the legislature. So part of the exercise through this process is to allow us, if there is a need to legislation or the law, improve it, because there are some testimonials provided by the agency that there are some challenges. Obviously, taking into consideration the unforeseen storms and all that, naturally it's going to just push everybody back in that pandemic. So that's understood, and I'm glad you mentioned that as well. But we certainly we cannot say that the special committee is meant to just have this one meeting and we're going to have a perfect back brief or a committee report for that matter to address some of the questions and the concerns. So having said that, if you can, on top of what you're doing as an administrator, director, peek in 1949 and see if we can assist some of the provisions. That please feel free to communicate to us and some of the suggestions you may have. And we will do our best to also try and address some of the concerns raised by other entities and other agencies in the CNMI. I couldn't say anything more than how you presented all the efforts that you've done over the course. So the 22nd legislature and the 20th legislature is the one that created OPD, and you have those grants. That's pretty impressive. And
teamwork, sir.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I want to say that I don't know how much information or how much meeting you have. I'm sure that you're probably part of the planning committee or the SETS committee that you say you're going to ask the government to reappoint or to restart. But I wanted to suggest, if possible, to get DPO involved heavily, because they do provide 5-year plan work, land use plan, and a lot of that, also planning and development, land use plan, and each senatorial district kind of have like this very distinct, unique way of trying to be sustainable and also to be a positive contributor for the entire CNMI. A lot of things have changed since the pandemic. A lot of the new normal is we're still trying to figure that out. We're kind of getting the grip, but we all know that anything can happen, right? So I don't mean to go off course with this, Mr. Romero. I appreciate the presentation today. I don't have a question really. If your answer to Senator Denise Sablan's question regarding the relationship or the way the SOP with OGMSC, I'm satisfied with that. But please know that we're here. If there's anything that we can do to assist, please call on us.
Thank you, Mr. President. We will review the law again, 19-4. I'm sorry, not again. We'll take a look at the law. I think we're more focused on providing as much information on our own grants operations as we could.
And then a lot of it, there's some question of indirect cost, how much of that you're utilizing, because you're in where the line agency, it actually goes to a portal at Department of Finance, and then you work backwards to that,
Correct, and you'll see in the worksheet that I provided,
right,
that it does provide a breakdown of the IDC that was associated with those awards.
Thank you so much. And I don't have any other questions unless Ms. Balado wants to share anything. Ms. Balan. And I like this kind of meeting, very quick. Yes, go ahead.
If I may, senators, I would like to perhaps schedule a time where we can engage on the draft plan, and perhaps before it even reaches this body officially. And I invite you and everyone here to visit our website, opd.gov.mp. Actually, the Department of Finance's new OIT is helping to also upgrade and update my website. They've provided some constructive criticism about how to make it more easily navigable. I think that's the word. But I invite you to take a look at the draft plan. And we're really speeding up our efforts now, while at the same time ensuring that we align with all the existing projects and initiatives that are underway, hazard mitigation, public assistance, CDBG-GDR, all in tandem with the new infrastructure recovery program, and some other exciting initiatives that are being explored as a result of the competitive funding that's been made available through ARPA. So yeah, we're happy to brief you at your convenience.
Okay, thank you for mentioning that. And you're referencing to the packet, that's what you're referencing to, right? The time with the legislature, with the Senate, really? That you wanted to have an audience or presentation?
Yes, correct. Referencing to the draft plan.
Right.
And presenting our.
Okay, so this is a good time to actually look at our schedule. I'm sure the staff are making note of that and be in communication with your officer.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Marcia, with that, there being no other agency to entertain, and that would conclude our meeting today. I want to thank OGMSC for participating this morning, and of course this afternoon OPD and CIP, or yeah, OPD. There's a lot of acronyms for their presentation. So we appreciate all the and the viewing public that participated or are able to access our presentation this morning, our meeting this morning. So with that, any other discussion, members? We're ready. Announcement, there's another continuation next week on June 22nd and at 9:30 a.m. in the same venue. And other than that, now the chair recognize anyone, any member to make a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn today's proceedings, Mr. President. Subject to your vote.
Yep, thank you. There's been a motion offered by the floor leader for adjournment, and seconded by Senator Cruz. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. And this meeting stands adjourned. Submit to the vote. Thank you.